Hey, heard the news? You're no longer needed. Hate to break it to you, but this high rise and your husband, they're mine now. As a token of gratitude, I'll rent you a room at double the price. Even as I heard these vile words from my so called friend, Violet, my heart remained calm. Understood. Let's proceed with the divorce. I'll call the lawyer immediately. I said it in a purely businesslike manner. Perhaps it was the way I spoke, but Violet started to laugh again. Oh dear, is our gardening volunteer obsessed with games, struggling financially? While Violet laughed, her sidekick, my husband Cody, was fretting over the alimony. Cody's reluctance to pay was clearly irritating Violet. Hey, what's with the hesitation? Just pay up and it's over. Cody, you're the owner of this high rise, aren't you? Then you shouldn't have any problem paying such an amount. At Violet's words, Cody wore a guilty expression. At the same moment, the lawyer burst into laughter. Violet, are you serious? This high rise belongs entirely to Nicola. Hearing this, Violet's face showed she didn't grasp the meaning of those words for a moment. Was it foolish of me to feel flattered that the popular Violet showed interest in a plain and introverted person like me? But maybe I was the fool to trust them. Cody and Violet are indeed very much alike. Their contempt for me mirrors that of the devil. You two don't deserve the penthouse of this high rise. Sink deeper, right down to the very bottom of the earth. I will never forgive you. My name is Nicola, a 28-year-old housewife. I live in a high rise with my husband Cody, whom I married 2 years ago. Twice a week, I teach at a gardening class, and the rest of the time, I'm mostly at home, in front of the computer. I've always been introverted since my school days, with a great love for games, comics, and animation. My marriage to Cody was nothing short of a fluke. 2 years ago, I had to visit a bar in a bustling district for work. It was a popular place, well situated with a storefront location. And there, working as a bartender, was Cody. Entering the bar for the first time, I was extremely nervous, but Cody's lighthearted banter allowed me to relax. He was a popular bartender in the place, charming and bright. I'm not usually a big drinker, but I might have had a bit too much, riding on Cody's lively chat. Because of that, I found myself sharing various things with him. My favorite anime, my preferred foods, even about my family's business back home. Under normal circumstances, Cody and I would never have crossed paths, but perhaps intrigued by my uniqueness, he took an interest in me. Following that, we went on a few dates. One thing led to another, and before I knew it, we were living together and had registered our marriage. Around that time, Cody transitioned from being a bartender to owning the bar. The previous owner was looking to step down, and Cody stepped up, taking over the business. Due to Cody's busy schedule, we never had a formal wedding, but that didn't bother me at all. I was happy just to be living together. 2 years into our marriage, that was our life. Cody's work often kept him out until late, so he'd come home in the wee hours. As for me, I taught a gardening class twice a week in the mornings, so our routine was me coming home as Cody was just getting out of bed. We'd have lunch together, and then Cody would start preparing for work. While he was getting ready, I'd be at my computer. Watching me. Must be nice, not working much and playing games all day on the computer. Cody would often make snide remarks, but I'd always counter. I've told you before this isn't just play, this is work for me too. Whenever I said that, Cody would mockingly laugh. Sure. There are those who claim gaming is their job, but messing around with that stuff doesn't make money, so it's not really work. I knew Cody didn't mean harm, but from his perspective, someone who took great pride in his work, everything I did seemed like mere play, whether it was being on the computer or teaching gardening. Playing with soil and computers won't earn you money. You should find something more fulfilling to do with your time. He might not understand, but I felt a real sense of purpose in my work. Still, not wanting to dampen his work motivation, I chose not to say more. Since becoming a bar owner, Cody seemed a bit changed. Initially, he was more easygoing, cheerful, and humble, but lately, he's been rather condescending. Is that just the nature of being a business owner? As I pondered this, Cody finished getting ready and left the house. A few hours after Cody left, A message from a close friend popped up. Her name was Violet, my best friend since high school. Back then, I was somewhat introverted and shy, but Violet reached out to me. She was social, a friend to many, the life of the class, so to speak. According to Violet, the reason she took an interest in me was the size of my family home. My family home was incredibly large, and above all, very old. I love stuff like A Test of Courage, she said. Despite my reservations about calling a house that's still lived in a test of courage, I didn't mind since Violet had taken an interest in me. In fact, we did host a real test of courage at my house with some classmates one summer. Thanks to that, I, who was once introverted, managed to blend into the class. Even after graduating high school, we kept in touch, and I even shared my wedding news with her. Violet was genuinely happy for me, as if it were her own joy. Her message read, "Got bored of my hometown, so I'm moving to your place. Count on me." After college, Violet had married a young local councilman and was living an enviable, affluent life. But through our exchanges, I learned that due to some circumstances, she was getting divorced, childless. That's what prompted her to leave her hometown. With Cody's permission, I invited Violet over the day she arrived in our city. I wanted to introduce her to Cody. Since she hadn't settled on a place to live yet, my plan was to go house hunting with real estate agents after her visit. Nicola, don't worry. Even if the house is small or your husband is unattractive, I promise I won't laugh. The message she sent just before moving was ambiguous. Kind or rude, I couldn't tell. Yet somewhere inside, I chuckled, knowing it was so like Violet, but with a wry smile. Wow, high-rise apartments really do have great views. I'm jealous. Plus, you own this whole building, right? That's amazing! Violet was thrilled upon seeing our high-rise apartment. Though not on the top floor, our apartment was high enough to offer a great view. And I too loved the scenery it presented. Hey, what does your husband do? Violet asked, looking out at the view. He runs a bar. My reply seemed to excite her even more. Wow, a business owner. That's impressive. And what about you, Nicola? What are you up to these days? Next, she turned her attention to me. I teach at a gardening class twice a week. My response, for some reason, made Violet turn back with a gleeful look. Wow, that's not just volunteer work. Gardening is something anyone can do, right? Well, I guess it can't be helped if Nicola has no other talents. Violet's laughter, mixed with her words, stirred complex feelings within me. But then Cody emerged from the bedroom, shifting my focus. That's right. Nicola doesn't do much but play games on the computer all day, Cody said, settling into the sofa. Seeing this, Violet quickly moved and sat near him. Cody, nice to meet you. Wow, you're much more handsome than I thought. I can't believe Nicola landed such a good-looking husband. Right? Nicola has always been into games and anime since high school. I was surprised to see nothing's changed. Violet's tone noticeably lifted in Cody's presence, a pattern I recognized from high school when she encountered a man she liked. I was surprised too, to find out Nicola had such a cute friend. I thought some geeky girl was coming over, but here you are. Cody's words seemed to delight Violet. It appeared Cody wasn't displeased either. It might just be my imagination, but Violet and Cody seem eerily alike. Their conversation appears light-hearted, but there's an undercurrent of malice in their words. The ones dishing it out may not realize, but the recipient is acutely aware. In this case, the target of their malice seems to be me. Completely disregarding my presence, Violet and Cody are getting along famously. Unable to open my computer with guests around, I'm just wasting time, doing nothing. Eventually, their talk shifted to Cody's bar. Cody, you run a bar, right? That's amazing. I'm interested in business too, so I really admire you. Violet's praise seemed to put Cody in a good mood. I'm about to open up the bar. Why don't you come along? Consider it a housewarming gift. Before I knew it, the plan had shifted to Violet visiting Cody's bar. We were supposed to go house hunting with real estate agents after her visit. But Violet, seemingly forgetting our plan, eagerly accepted Cody's invitation. Really? I'd love to! I couldn't let Violet, who had just arrived in town, go to a bar at night alone. I was about to join them when Cody stopped me. You don't need to come. You've got your teaching gig early tomorrow, right? Don't worry, I'll take good care of Violet. Saying that, leaving Violet's suitcase in the living room, Cody left with her. As they were leaving, Violet seemed to give me a spiteful look. Am I reading too much into it? Is it just paranoia? From my experience, bad feelings often turn out to be right. In the end, Cody and Violet didn't return until the morning. After my gardening class, I came home to find Violet asleep on the living room sofa. Cody, emerging from the bedroom, said Violet had drunk a lot. Apparently, she got so drunk that she fell asleep in the bar, and they ended up staying there. She had a lot to share, you know. She's been through a lot, marrying young and all. Quite the contrast to you, just playing games all day. Cody dropped this snide remark and left for the bar again. In the evening, when Violet woke up, I asked about her housing situation. Oh, don't worry, I found a place. I'll be moving there today, she said. I was puzzled about when she had the time to find a place, but true to her word, Violet left with her suitcase that day. For a few days, I sent messages to Violet out of concern, but her replies were all cold. Then, browsing through Violet's social media, I saw photos of her visiting Cody's bar. Apparently, she'd been going to the bar alone frequently. One day, Violet's going to work at our bar. She helped out with the dishes during a busy weekend, and it was a big help. I've decided to have her assist at the bar, Cody told me. I hadn't been to Cody's bar since the day I met him. Cody didn't want me there, preferring not to have anyone from his private life in his personal space. Yet Violet was allowed, not just to visit, but even to work at Cody's bar. A sense of unease began to bubble up inside me. Lately, Cody and Violet have been getting uncomfortably close. Even if they hit it off, it's strange for Violet to be so close to her friend's husband. Ever since Violet started working at Cody's bar, a month has passed. Cody seems to be leaving for work earlier than usual. The bar's getting busy again. Lots to prepare, he'd say. I offered, if you're that busy, maybe I could help. But Cody flat out refused. No way. You can't come. The neighborhood's gotten dangerous lately, and I can't risk anything happening to you. His tone was evasive, but I didn't argue. Maybe he's just enjoying working with Violet too much. At that point, I found myself unable to trust either my husband or my best friend. Then, unexpectedly, Violet visited our home. Her attire had transformed into something far more luxurious than when she first left her hometown. Leaving my hometown was the right decision. There's so much excitement here. Every day is a blast. And Cody's here too. Violet sat on the living room sofa, giving me a nasty smirk. Then, with a sigh, she said, how did someone like Nicola even get married to Cody? He owns a bar, and even this fancy high-rise. Happiness like this doesn't suit a game-obsessed introvert like you. Hearing Violet's words, I was certain of her true feelings. Violet had always been like this. Sociable, friendly, but intolerant of others having an upper hand. Maybe she resented me living in a house bigger than anyone else's in high school. That's why she associated my home with a test of courage to tarnish its image. When she married the councilman, she flaunted it to everyone. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say she married for the bragging rights. Now, it seems she can't stand that I, with my entrepreneur husband and high-rise, am living a life she envies. I could feel a grudge from Violet, as if saying I shouldn't be happier than her. Nicola, have you ever looked at yourself in the mirror? Your clothes, your face, it's all plain and terrible. Cody's embarrassed to have you at the bar. That's why he doesn't want you there. Violet said this with a loud laugh. I just silently stared at her. My silence seemed to annoy her. She stopped laughing, and with a scornful look, she blurted out, let me be clear, since you seem to be playing dumb. Cody and I are in a relationship. After work, he always comes back to my room. You wouldn't know since you're blissfully asleep. Oh, and my room? It's on the top floor of this high rise. Cody arranged it for me. Being the owner sure is different. I was speechless at Violet's words. I had a hunch about the affair between Violet and Cody, but what left me dumbfounded was that they were using the top floor of our high rise. Just as I was about to respond to Violet's smug declaration, Cody emerged from the bedroom. Cody seemed slightly surprised to see Violet in the living room, but quickly composed himself and sat beside her. Cody, I've heard everything from Violet about your relationship. What? Is it true that you gave Violet the top floor? Wasn't that supposed to be for us if we ever had kids? I asked Cody as calmly as I could. Scratching his head sleepily, Cody replied in a dismissive tone. So what? It's not being used anyway. Plus, there's no way we'd have kids. The thought of having kids with you? Don't make me sick. If that's Cody's response, then our future together is already decided. I can't stay any longer. So, you've decided to spend your life with Violet from now on? And you're okay with that, Violet? I sought one final confirmation from them. Violet responded with a smug, obviously. Cody, wrapping an arm around Violet's shoulder, added, Do we even need to confirm that? I'm going to live my life with Violet. You're not needed anymore. Cody, too, scorned me with the same disdain as Violet. Their words no longer affected me. Violet, thrilled by her victory, kept a triumphant smile. Then, she ostentatiously wrapped her arms around Cody. Hey, heard the news? You're no longer needed. Sorry, but I'll be taking this high-rise and your husband. As a token of gratitude, I'll rent you a room at double the price. Even hearing these lowest of low words from Violet, my heart remained calm. Maybe when anger reaches its peak, one becomes unnervingly calm. Understood. Let's get divorced. I'll call the lawyer immediately. I stated this in a purely businesslike manner. My response seemed to amuse Violet, who began to laugh again. Oh, our gaming-obsessed gardening volunteer is in financial trouble, huh? Planning to call a lawyer and demand compensation from us? Cody, we can afford it, right? Let's give Nicola some money. She needs to live too. Cody agreed with a simple, yeah. And saying that, he embraced Violet. The two were completely lost in their world. Watching them was so repulsive, I had to leave. While they were at the bar, I packed my things and left. Cody married me because I drunkenly talked about my family's wealth, didn't he? Because he learned I was from a well-to-do landowning family in my hometown? Violet's the same, always wanting to be superior to others. You saw taming the landowner's daughter as a way to elevate your status, didn't you? Yet I was happy that someone showed interest in plain, introverted me. Was I a fool to trust you? Indeed, you two are very much alike. The way you look down on me is just like that of the devil. Neither of you suits the top floor of this high rise. Please, fall further down, right to the very bottom of the earth. I will never forgive you. After leaving that high rise, I quickly found a new place to live. I moved my large belongings while they were at the bar. Violet's social media was full of posts about her dates with Cody and scenes from the bar, though she didn't show her face. The hashtags included things like, he's a business owner, and living in a high-rise. She's a woman with an insatiable need for validation, I thought to myself. I got referred to a lawyer by someone I knew. This lawyer was reputed for handling cases related to infidelity and real estate, so I didn't hesitate to ask for his help. Nicola, you've been through a lot. You don't have to fight alone anymore. Let's work on this together. The lawyer was a man with a gentle demeanor, providing a sense of comfort. He proceeded with the compensation claim very promptly. Cody and Violet seemed to have made comments agreeing to the compensation payment, so I expected them to comply soon. However, that wasn't the case. A week after sending the certified mail for the compensation claim, there was no response. Even after 3 more weeks, nothing from them. I had somehow anticipated this. Is Cody's bar really that profitable? I didn't know how much money Cody's bar was making. We had discussed financial management when we got married. However, Cody never talked about the bar's earnings and only gave me the bare minimum for living expenses. Sometimes he even hesitated to provide that. During such times, I would use my savings to cover our living expenses. With Violet, too, the flow of money was completely opaque. Their initial, easy agreement to pay the compensation had felt off to me. After waiting a month with no response from them, the lawyer arranged for a four-way meeting under his coordination. To ensure they couldn't run or hide, he set the meeting at the high-rise, my former home. On the bar's day off, the lawyer and I headed to the high-rise. Violet, visibly annoyed, greeted us as we entered the room. "What's with this lawyer? Coming all the way to the bar? It's really a nuisance, you know." She sat on the sofa, legs and arms crossed, complaining. Apparently, the lawyer had gone to Cody's bar regarding this matter. Cody, either just woken up or tired, looked listless. He must be feeling extremely awkward. I understand exactly how Cody feels. Just to get started, the lawyer began, but Violet interrupted loudly. "This is so annoying. Cody, just pay the alimony already. That amount in the letter, you can pay it off easily, right?" Violet, clutching Cody's clothing, shook him as she pleaded. But Cody looked reluctant. Yeah, that makes sense. I understand why Cody isn't responding to Violet. Because he doesn't have the money. He can't admit that after trying to look good in front of Violet. Having too much pride can be a real disadvantage at times like these. Violet couldn't hide her irritation as Cody hesitated over the compensation. "Hey, why are you being so stingy? Just pay it and it's over. You're the owner of this high-rise, right? The owner, right? Then you can afford this amount no problem." At Violet's words, Cody made an awkward, embarrassed face. At the same time, the lawyer burst out laughing. "Violet, are you serious? This high-rise belongs entirely to Nicola." Hearing this, Violet's face showed a moment of confusion. "What? Nicola? Why Nicola? Cody, you said you own this whole building, right? That's why you provided me with the top floor, right? You told me you were the owner. Did you lie?" Violet lunged at Cody with great intensity, and he responded, slightly intimidated. "No, it's not a lie. After all, what belongs to Nicola is mine too, right? I'm the husband." At Cody's words, Violet's face fell in despair. It was something prideful Cody would say to impress a woman. "Yes, this high-rise is indeed mine. It's a precious piece of real estate, passed down from my great-grandfather's era, which I inherited from my family. My family may be landowners, but we don't just own land in our hometown. Even as a husband, it's not yours, you know. But it doesn't matter anyway. We're getting divorced, so it's irrelevant." Following my statement, Cody too began to look utterly despondent. "So, shall we proceed? As per the certified mail I sent the other day, I'm claiming compensation from you both. And what about this room and the top floor? Planning to continue living here? If so, the rent for this room is $4K, and the top floor is $7K. So I'll be expecting the monthly payments. Thank you." Until now, the concept of rent hadn't arisen since Cody and I were married. But now that we are strangers, not family, it's only natural to ask for rent. "Wait a minute! We didn't have to pay before, and now you suddenly ask for it? That's unfair. And $4,000 and $7,000? Is that how you treat friends?" I was surprised to hear the word friends come from Violet. Quite ironic. Violet, after all, stole her friend's husband. Ignoring Violet's nonsensical words, I continued the conversation. "Also, you'll need to pay the tenant fee for the building where Cody's bar is located. It's in a prime spot downtown, so it's not cheap like the high-rise rent. I'll assess it and bill you soon, so wait for it." Cody's face turned pale, and Violet's expression twisted even more. "Violet might not have known, but the building where Cody's bar is located is also owned by Nicola. In fact, Nicola owns about 6 high-rises and buildings in this area alone. Until now, I hadn't demanded tenant fees from Cody because he was my husband. That's why he had the financial flexibility to run his business. But that's all over now. You both mocked me for playing games all day, but it's not just a game. It's a simulation system created by our company. It analyzes local human traffic, demographics, logistics, even geomancy, to calculate the best locations and layouts for properties. I kept saying it wasn't just a game, but you never believed me. I've been interested in real estate since high school, thanks to my family business. Over the years, my experience has earned me a bit of a reputation as a real estate mogul. Out of curiosity, what's your total asset value? Violet asked timidly, clinging to Cody's arm. I disclosed it without reservation. About 16 million, I guess. Cody and Violet nearly fell off the sofa at my words. Their shock was understandable. Until recently, they had been calling me a game-obsessed gardening volunteer. But even now, Cody and Violet, those devils, didn't crumble easily. Regaining his composure, Cody managed to laugh and said, "So half of that is mine, right? If we're getting divorced, there's the distribution of property, right? That means I get half of your assets, right? Right, lawyer?" The lawyer and I were a bit taken aback. Cody knew the term distribution of property, but he didn't understand the essence. Well, distribution of property applies to shared assets built together by the couple. Nicola's real estate and company, inherited from her family before marriage, aren't subject to distribution, explained the lawyer. Cody's shoulders slumped at these words. However, he still tried to wriggle out from a different angle. I was thinking, the certified mail mentioned a specific time frame for the infidelity. But what if, I said, Violet and I started our relationship only after I split from Nicola? That would mean the compensation claim doesn't apply, right? Because that wouldn't be infidelity. At his words, right? Violet exclaimed. Cody must have thought it through. However, we wouldn't send a certified mail without solid evidence. Show me the evidence then. If you don't have any, we're not paying any compensation. Seeing Cody's defiant look, I almost burst into laughter. But I composed myself and replied, You want evidence? I have plenty. But which would you prefer? Let's start with audio. Remember, Violet, when you loudly declared your relationship with Cody at my house? That conversation was recorded on my computer's voice recorder. Plus, there are several photos of you two entering the same room together. Even the security cameras captured you entering the top floor. But I anticipated they might still argue it wasn't conclusive evidence. Indeed, Cody looked ready to retort, smiling as if he had something up his sleeve. Oh, speaking of security cameras, I installed new ones in the building where Cody's bar is. There was a blind spot in the corridor, so I placed them there. Cody visibly reacted to my words, clearly agitated. Hey, you can't just install security cameras like that. Capturing blind spots is pointless. Take them down immediately. No, I'll do it myself. From laughter to anger, his face turned red with rage. Truly a man of many expressions. What's wrong with installing security cameras in my own building? Besides, Cody, you were the one who told me it was dangerous around the bar, and not to come. After hearing that, as the owner, it only makes sense to install security cameras in blind spots. Even Cody seemed to concede at that point. He probably had a clue without needing to see the footage. When I checked it beforehand, it clearly showed Cody and Violet intimately close in the building's blind spot. Moreover, let's get married. And let's keep it a secret from Nicola. We're all too vividly recorded. I was really glad I installed those high-performance security cameras. Cody and Violet, now subdued, slumped on the sofa. They didn't utter a single word of apology, which shocked me. Ugh, I should have just stayed in my hometown. This is so annoying and troublesome. Violet's remarks were incredibly self-centered. She came uninvited, disrupted someone's home, and then complained about it being bothersome. It saddened me. I once believed Violet was a friend, even felt grateful for her friendship. But why did it have to come to this? The sad part is probably that Violet never considered me a friend from the start. That's why she could take my husband without remorse. But I won't show any mercy. I've decided I will never forgive her. By the way, Violet, It seems you're still not officially divorced from your husband back home. Violet slumped on the sofa, looked up with wide eyes. Cody, surprised, turned to Violet. He probably didn't know. It's still under divorce mediation, right? I heard from classmates when I went back home. Your divorce is not settled yet. While it's often legally fine to be in a relationship during divorce mediation, it might not leave a good impression on the mediators. It's clear that infidelity on Violet's part is the reason for the divorce, but she kept denying it, and while her husband was gathering evidence, Violet fled. And here she is, claiming to marry Cody. Violet, is that true? We're getting married, right? You promised, didn't you? The divorce will be finalized soon, right? There's no compensation or anything on your end, right? Right, Violet? Violet said nothing, just glaring at me. Being confronted with an inconvenient truth, she must be furious. Her face, twisted with rage, turned bright red. But then, in a moment, Violet's expression changed as if she had a sudden realization. She muttered to herself, seemingly deep in thought. Finally, as if she had figured it out, she turned to Cody with an unnaturally bright voice and said, "That's it. I won't divorce. I'll go back to my hometown. I'll apologize to my husband and ask for his forgiveness. Cody, you should reconcile with Nicola for now. That way we won't have to pay the compensation and Nicola's assets will become yours. Then everything will be settled. Once things have calmed down, we can be together again. Okay?" Even the lawyer looked dismayed at this suggestion. Cody exclaimed, "Great idea!" And they started high-fiving each other. "All right, Nicola, let's make up. I'll apologize for everything. Please forgive me. I always knew you were the only wife for me." I briskly brushed away Cody's hand, which was reaching out for a handshake. "Don't joke with me. Do you think something once broken can be so easily fixed? Do you even realize what you've done? Sorry, but I don't have the slightest feelings for you anymore. My decision to divorce is absolute and unchangeable." Both Cody and Violet were stunned by my words. They couldn't respond. They couldn't even muster a retort. Reconcile? Their insult to me was beyond comprehension, fueling my anger to its peak. "Violet, thinking you were a friend was my mistake. It's so disappointing. Goodbye, and don't ever show your face to me again." Leaving the rest to the lawyer, I left the room. I could hear Violet's wailing from the living room I left behind, but it meant nothing to me. What's left for me, who lost both a husband and a friend at the same time? I decided not to dwell on it now. All I wanted was to sleep in my warm bed. Soon, my divorce with Cody was finalized officially. Whether Violet managed to divorce her husband back home, I don't know. But as far as I know, Cody and Violet are living together now. Of course they had to move out of the high rise. Apparently, they're renting a cheap apartment somewhere. This is all information from the lawyer. The bar you used to own has been renovated and reopened. It seems to be doing quite well. Cody, unable to pay the tenant fees for the bar, had to let it go. Thanks to its prime location, there were immediate takers, and he had to give up the bar with tears in his eyes. The new owner is diligently paying the tenant fees. By the way, a small amount of compensation is being transferred from Cody and Violet every month. It's not that I want their money. Receiving this compensation from them is like accepting their sincerity. It's a little bit of pride for me, who lost a husband and a friend. I established a new real estate company, dedicating myself to enriching people's lives. After all, what remained for me was my work. My knowledge and experience, built since my student days, now serve to provide better land and better homes. When I wake up in the morning and open the curtains, I can see the whole town I'm familiar with. The low-lying sun slowly rises, casting the shadows of buildings over the entire town. Right now, I can't think of any happiness greater than this view. It fills my heart. Let's do our best today. Another usual day has begun.
The sound of shattering glass jolted me from my daydream. I rushed to the kitchen, my heart pounding, to find Mason standing over a broken vase, his face contorted with anger. "Damn it, Evelyn. Why do you always leave things where I can knock them over?" he snapped, glaring at me as if I deliberately set a trap for him. I bit back a retort. This wasn't the Mason I'd married 5 years ago. That Mason would have apologized, helped clean up, maybe even laughed about his clumsiness. This new version, well, I hardly recognized him anymore. "I'm sorry, honey," I said, kneeling to pick up the larger pieces. "I'll be more careful next time." Mason grunted and stormed out of the kitchen. I heard the front door slam a moment later. So much for our quiet Sunday afternoon together. As I swept up the remaining shards, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my sister-in-law, Penelope. "Hey, sis. Lunch tomorrow? Have some juicy gossip to share." I hesitated before replying. Penelope had always been a bit of a troublemaker, but lately she'd been hinting at knowing something about Mason, something she claimed I needed to hear. "Sure," I texted back. "The usual place at noon." Her response was immediate. "Perfect. You won't believe what I've found out." I sighed, tossing the last of the broken vase into the trash. What had happened to my picture-perfect life? Just 2 years ago, Mason and I were the couple everyone envied. Now I felt like I was walking on eggshells in my own home. The next day I arrived at the cafe early, my stomach in knots. Penelope breezed in, her designer sunglasses perched atop her perfectly coiffed hair. "Evelyn, darling," she exclaimed, air-kissing my cheeks. "You look exhausted. Is my brother keeping you up all night?" She winked suggestively. I forced a laugh. "Oh, just busy with work and house stuff." Penelope's smile faltered for a moment. "About that, Evelyn, there's something you should know about Mason." My heart raced. "What is it?" She leaned in close, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I overheard Mom and Dad talking. Apparently, Mason's been seeing a therapist for months. They mentioned something about anger issues and family history." I blinked, stunned. "What? He never told me anything about therapy." Penelope nodded sympathetically. "I know. It's shocking, but there's more. They said something about Mason's father. The one who left when Mason was little?" I nodded, my mind whirling. "Well," Penelope continued, "apparently he didn't just leave. He was abusive, to both Mason's mom and Mason himself." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Mason had always been vague about his father, but this was beyond anything I'd imagined. "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Penelope reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "I'm so sorry, Evelyn. I thought you deserved to know." I sat back, my lunch forgotten. Suddenly, Mason's mood swings, his increasing irritability, even the incident with the vase, it all took on a new, terrifying context. As I drove home that afternoon, my mind raced with questions. Why hadn't Mason told me about his therapy, about his father? And most importantly, what did this mean for our future, for our marriage? I pulled into our driveway, steeling myself for whatever mood I might find Mason in, but as I reached for the door handle, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from a number I didn't recognize. "Evelyn, we need to talk. It's about Mason. Meet me at Riverside Park tomorrow at 3 p.m. Come alone." I stared at the message, a chill running down my spine. Who was N? And what else could they possibly tell me about my husband that I didn't already know? With a deep breath, I stepped out of the car, ready to face whatever awaited me inside. But one thing was certain. My perfect life was unraveling fast, and I had no idea how to stop it. I paced the living room, my mind racing with the mysterious text message. Who was N, and what did they know about Mason? The sound of his key in the lock made me jump. "Evelyn, you home?" Mason called out, his voice oddly cheerful. I plastered on a smile as he entered. "In here, honey?" He strode in, looking more relaxed than I'd seen him in weeks. "Hey, I was thinking we could order in tonight. Chinese, maybe?" I blinked, caught off guard by his sudden shift in mood. "Sure, that sounds nice." As Mason called in our order, I watched him carefully. Was this the same man who'd exploded over a broken vase just yesterday? The same one hiding a traumatic past and secret therapy sessions? Over dinner, Mason chatted about work, laughing at his own jokes. I nodded along, my stomach churning with each bite. When he reached for my hand across the table, I nearly flinched. "You okay, babe?" he asked, his brow furrowing. "You seem off." I forced another smile. "Just tired, long day at work." He nodded, seemingly satisfied. "Well, why don't you turn in early? I'll clean up." As I lay in bed that night, listening to Mason move around downstairs, I made a decision. I had to meet this mysterious N. I needed answers. The next day I arrived at Riverside Park 10 minutes early, my heart pounding. A woman with sleek black hair approached, her eyes darting nervously. "Evelyn?" she asked quietly. I nodded. "You must be Anne." "Natalie," she corrected, sitting beside me on the bench. "I work with Mason." My blood ran cold. "You work with him?" Natalie's eyes filled with tears. "Evelyn, I'm so sorry. I didn't know he was married at first. By the time I found out, things had already progressed. The world spun around me. You're having an affair with my husband?" She nodded miserably. "It ended last week. I told him I couldn't do it anymore. But Evelyn, there's something else you need to know." Before she could continue, my phone rang. It was Mason. "Hey, where are you?" he asked, his voice tight with tension. "I came home early to surprise you, but you're not here." I swallowed hard. "I'm just running some errands. I'll be home soon." "Hurry back," he said, an edge to his voice that sent chills down my spine. "We need to talk." I hung up, my hands shaking. Natalie watched me with wide eyes. "Evelyn," she said urgently, "Mason has a temper. I've seen it at work. He scared me sometimes. Please, be careful." I stood up, my legs unsteady. "I have to go." "Wait," Natalie called after me. "There's more you need to know." But I was already walking away, my mind reeling. My Mason, had been unfaithful, and now this woman was warning me about his temper. It was too much to process. As I drove home, a new text came through. It was from Penelope. "Evelyn, call me ASAP. It's about Mason. It's worse than we thought." I pulled over, my hands trembling as I dialed her number. "Evelyn?" Penelope answered on the first ring. Thank God. "Listen, I found out more about Mason's father. The abuse, it wasn't just physical. There were other things, terrible things. And Mason, he might have inherited more than just anger issues." My blood ran cold. "What are you saying, Penelope?" "I'm saying be careful, Evelyn. Very, very careful. And whatever you do, don't confront him alone." As I hung up, a wave of nausea washed over me. The man I'd married, the father of my future child, was suddenly a stranger to me, a potentially dangerous stranger. With shaking hands, I restarted the car. Mason was waiting for me at home, and for the first time in our marriage, I was terrified of what I might find when I got there. The piercing wail of a newborn jolted me awake. I stumbled out of bed, my body aching from the recent delivery. Lily's cries echoed through the nursery as I scooped her into my arms. "Shh, baby girl," I cooed, rocking her gently. "Mommy's here." As Lily's cries subsided, I glanced at the clock. 3:15 a.m. Mason should have been home hours ago. I settled into the rocking chair, Lily nestled against my chest. The past 9 months had been a roller coaster. After that terrifying night, when I'd returned home to find Mason in a rage, hurling accusations about my sneaking around, I'd told him about the pregnancy. The news had stopped him cold, transforming his anger into shocked silence. For a while, things had improved. Mason had been attentive, even loving, as my belly grew. But as the due date approached, his old patterns resurfaced. Late nights at the office, mysterious phone calls, that simmering anger just beneath the surface. The sound of the front door opening snapped me back to the present. Heavy footsteps stumbled up the stairs. "Evelyn?" Mason's voice slurred. "Where are you?" I tensed, holding Lily closer. "In the nursery," I called softly. Mason appeared in the doorway, his tie askew, eyes bloodshot. "Why are you up?" "Lily was hungry," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Where have you been, Mason?" "It's after 3 a.m. He waved a dismissive hand. "Work thing. Ran late." The lie hung heavy between us. I could smell the whiskey on his breath from across the room. "Mason," I started, but he cut me off. "I'm going to bed," he mumbled, turning away. "Don't wait up." As his footsteps faded, I felt a tear slide down my cheek. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. Lily deserved better. We both did. The next few weeks passed in a blur of sleepless nights and tense silences. Mason threw himself into work, leaving before dawn and returning long after Lily and I were asleep. On the rare occasions he was home, his temper flared at the slightest provocation. One afternoon, as I was folding laundry with Lily napping nearby, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Natalie. "We need to talk. It's about Mason. Please meet me." My heart raced. I hadn't spoken to Natalie since that day in the park. What more could she possibly have to tell me? Before I could respond, I heard Mason's car in the driveway. Panic surged through me as I quickly deleted the message. Mason burst through the door, his face flushed with anger. "Why the hell is your sister-in-law calling me, asking if I'm in therapy?" I froze, the laundry forgotten. "Mason, He advanced on me, his voice rising. Have you been talking to Penelope about our private life? Spreading lies about me? They're not lies, I whispered, backing away. I know about your father, Mason, about the abuse. His face contorted with rage. You don't know anything, he roared, slamming his fist into the wall beside my head. Lily's startled cries filled the air. I ducked under Mason's arm, racing to scoop her up. Don't you dare walk away from me, Mason shouted, following me into the nursery. I clutched Lily to my chest, my voice shaking. Mason, please, you're scaring her, you're scaring me. For a moment, something like shame flickered across his face, then his expression hardened. I'm going out, he growled. Don't wait up. As the front door slammed, I sank to the floor, Lily wailing in my arms. This couldn't go on. I had to protect my daughter. I had to protect myself. With trembling fingers, I pulled out my phone and dialed my mother's number. Mom? I choked out as soon as she answered. I need help. Can Lily and I come stay with you for a while? As I listened to my mother's concerned voice, a steely resolve settled over me. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of my fight for a better life, for both Lily and myself. The gentle cooing of Lily in her playpen was the only sound breaking the tense silence of our home. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the clock. 9:30 p.m. Mason was late. Again. My phone buzzed with a text from Penelope. How are you holding up? Any word from Mason? I sighed, typing back, nothing. He's been gone more than he's home these days. The past few months had been a blur of sleepless nights and lonely days. Mason's absences had become so frequent that I'd started to feel like a single parent. The rare times he was home, the air crackled with unspoken tension. The sound of a key in the lock made me jump. Mason stumbled in, his tie askew and eyes bloodshot. Where have you been? I asked, trying to keep my voice level. He waved a dismissive hand. Work stuff. You wouldn't understand. The familiar excuse ignited a spark of anger in my chest. I wouldn't understand? Mason, I've been raising our daughter alone while you're out doing God knows what. His eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm not blind, Mason. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the way you barely look at Lily or me anymore. What's going on? For a moment, something like guilt flashed across his face. Then his expression hardened. You're being paranoid, Evelyn. I'm working hard to provide for this family. Is that such a crime? Before I could respond, Lily started crying. I moved to get her, but Mason held up a hand. I've got it, he muttered, heading towards the playpen. I watched as he awkwardly picked up our daughter, his movements stiff and unfamiliar. Lily's cries intensified. Here, let me, I said, reaching for her. Mason jerked away. I said I've got it, he snapped, his voice rising. Lily wailed louder, her little face red with distress. Something in me snapped. Give her to me, Mason. Now. My voice was low and dangerous. For a tense moment, we stared at each other. Then, with a look of disgust, he thrust Lily into my arms. Fine. You deal with it. I'm going to bed. As he stormed upstairs, I held Lily close, my heart racing. This wasn't just about Mason's absences anymore. Something was seriously wrong. The next morning, I woke to find Mason already gone. A hastily scribbled note on the kitchen counter read, "Business trip, back in a few days." My stomach churned with a mix of relief and dread. As I prepared Lily's breakfast, my phone rang. It was Natalie. "Evelyn," she said, her voice tight with urgency. "We need to talk. Can you meet me for lunch today?" I hesitated, remembering our last encounter. "I don't know, Natalie. Things are complicated enough as it is." "Please," she insisted. "It's about Mason. There's something you need to know." An hour later, I sat across from Natalie in a quiet cafe, Lily babbling happily in her stroller beside me. Natalie looked nervous, her fingers twisting a napkin. "Evelyn, I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen." "What are you talking about?" I asked, a knot forming in my stomach. She took a deep breath. "The affair, it didn't end when I said it did. Mason, he threatened me, said he'd ruin my career if I told you the truth." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "He what?" Natalie's eyes filled with tears. "There's more. I think I might be pregnant." The words hit me like a physical blow. I gripped the edge of the table, struggling to breathe. "Evelyn?" Natalie's voice seemed to come from far away. "Are you okay?" I stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over my chair. "I have to go," I mumbled, grabbing Lily's stroller. As I rushed out of the cafe, my mind raced. Mason's affair, his threats, a possible pregnancy. It was all too much. I needed to think, to plan. One thing was clear. I couldn't go back to that house. I couldn't pretend everything was fine anymore. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and dialed my mother's number. It was time to make a change, for Lily's sake and my own. The weight of Natalie's revelation bore down on me as I pushed Lily's stroller through the bustling city streets. My mind raced, trying to make sense of the chaos my life had become. Mason's betrayal, his threats, and now a possible pregnancy with another woman. It was all too much to bear. I found myself in front of a small, discreet office building. The sign read Hawkins Investigations. My hand trembled as I reached for the door handle. Was I really going to do this? Can I help you? A middle-aged woman with kind eyes greeted me as I entered. I took a deep breath. I need to hire a private investigator. An hour later, I left the office with a strange mix of dread and determination. Mr. Hawkins had listened patiently to my story, his expression growing grimmer with each detail. He promised to start surveillance immediately. As I walked home, my phone buzzed. It was Mason. "Where are you?" His voice was sharp, irritated. "I came home early and you're not here." I swallowed hard. "I took Lily to the park. We'll be home soon." "Hurry up," he snapped before hanging up. My heart raced as I approached our house. Mason's car was in the driveway, and I could see his silhouette pacing in the living room window. "There you are," he said as I entered, his tone accusatory. "Where have you really been, Evelyn?" I busied myself with unbuckling Lily from her stroller. "I told you we were at the park." Mason's eyes narrowed. "For 3 hours? Don't lie to me." Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his face paling slightly. "I have to go," he muttered, grabbing his keys. "But you just got home," I protested, a sinking feeling in my stomach. He was already halfway out the door. "Work emergency. Don't wait up." As his car peeled out of the driveway, I felt a surge of anger and determination. Enough was enough. I put Lily down for her nap and then made a call. "Mr. Hawkins? It's Evelyn. My husband just left in a hurry. Can you?" "Already on it, Mrs. Carter," he replied. "I'll keep you updated." The next few hours were agonizing. I paced the house, jumping at every sound, my phone clutched tightly in my hand. Finally, it buzzed. A text from Mr. Hawkins. "Check your email. You'll want to see this." With shaking hands, I opened my laptop. There, in vivid color, were several photos of Mason, with Natalie, entering a hotel. I felt like I might be sick. Despite everything, despite knowing the truth, seeing it was something else entirely. Another text came through. "There's more. Call when you can." Lily's cries from the nursery snapped me back to reality. I went through the motions of changing and feeding her, my mind in a fog. Once she was settled, I called Mr. Hawkins. "Mrs. Carter," he said, his voice grave. "I've uncovered some financial irregularities in your husband's accounts. Large transfers to offshore banks, withdrawals from your joint savings. It appears he's been planning this for some time." The room spun around me. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying, Mrs. Carter, that your husband isn't just having an affair. He's preparing to leave the country with a significant portion of your shared assets." The phone slipped from my hand, clattering to the floor. Mason wasn't just betraying me emotionally, he was planning to destroy us financially as well. In that moment, something inside me hardened. The fear, the uncertainty, the desperate hope that things might improve, it all fell away, replaced by a steely resolve. I picked up the phone. "Mr. Hawkins, I need you to document everything, and I mean everything." "Of course, Mrs. Carter. What are you planning to do?" I looked at Lily, peacefully sleeping in her crib, unaware of the storm brewing around her. My voice was steady as I replied, "I'm going to fight, for myself, for my daughter, and for everything we deserve. Mason thinks he can walk away from us. He has no idea what's coming." As I hung up, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The game had changed, and so had I. Mason was about to learn that he'd underestimated the wrong woman. The morning sun streamed through the curtains as I zipped up the last of our suitcases. Lily babbled happily in her playpen, blissfully unaware of the seismic shift about to rock our lives. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. The front door slammed, making me jump. Mason's heavy footsteps echoed through the house. "Evelyn, where are you?" His voice was thick with irritation. I stepped out of the bedroom, my heart pounding. "In here, Mason?" He stormed into view, his face flushed with anger. "What the hell is this?" He thrust a stack of papers at me. I recognized them immediately. Bank statements, hotel receipts, photos of him with Natalie. My evidence. I think you know exactly what this is, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Mason's eyes narrowed dangerously. You've been spying on me? I've been protecting myself and our daughter, I shot back. How long did you think you could keep this up, Mason? The affair? The secret bank accounts? He lunged forward, grabbing my arm. You have no idea what you're talking about. I wrenched away from him. Don't touch me. It's over, Mason. I'm leaving, and I'm taking Lily with me. His face contorted with rage. Like hell you are? He made a move towards Lily's playpen. I stepped between them, my voice low and dangerous. Don't you dare. You come near her, and I swear I'll... The doorbell interrupted us. Mason froze, his eyes darting to the front door. That'll be my mother, I said, my chin raised defiantly. She's here to help us move out. Mason's face paled. You called your mother? Evelyn, we can work this out. You don't need to. Work what out, Mason? I snapped. Your affair? The money you've been siphoning from our accounts? Or maybe the fact that Natalie might be pregnant? He stumbled back as if I'd struck him. How did you... It doesn't matter. What matters is that we're done. I want a divorce. The doorbell rang again, more insistently this time. Mason's demeanor suddenly shifted, his voice taking on a pleading tone. Evelyn, please, think about Lily. She needs both her parents. I felt a flicker of doubt, but then I remembered the photos, the lies, the years of manipulation. No, Mason. What Lily needs is a mother who's strong enough to walk away from a toxic situation, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I moved to open the door, but Mason blocked my path. You're not taking my daughter anywhere. Step aside, Mason, I warned. Don't make this uglier than it needs to be. For a tense moment, we stared each other down. Then, with a defeated slump of his shoulders, Mason moved away. I opened the door to find my mother, Susan, her face etched with concern. Evelyn, honey, is everything okay? It will be, Mom, I said, ushering her inside. Can you get Lily? I'll grab the bags. As we prepared to leave, Mason made one last desperate attempt. Evelyn, please, I love you. We can fix this. I turned to face him, my voice firm. No, Mason, we can't. You broke this, and now you have to live with the consequences. With Lily in my arms and my mother by my side, I walked out of the house that had once been our home. As we drove away, I caught a glimpse of Mason in the rearview mirror, standing alone on the porch. A mix of emotions washed over me, relief, sadness, fear, and a glimmer of hope. The road ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. You did the right thing, honey, my mother said softly, squeezing my hand. I nodded, my eyes fixed on the road ahead. This wasn't the end. It was a new beginning. For me, for Lily, and for the life we deserved. The kitchen in my mother's house was warm and filled with the aroma of fresh coffee, but I couldn't shake the chill that had settled in my bones. Lily babbled happily in her high chair, oblivious to the tension surrounding her. Evelyn, honey, my mother, Susan, said gently, you need to eat something. I stared at the untouched toast on my plate. I can't, Mom. Not until we figure this out. The sound of the front door opening made us both turn. My stepfather, John, walked in, his face grim. I just got off the phone with our lawyer, he said, sitting down heavily at the table. It's worse than we thought. My heart raced. What do you mean? John sighed, running a hand through his silver hair. Mason's been busy. He's trying to claim you're an unfit mother, Evelyn. He's going for full custody of Lily. The room spun around me. He can't do that, I whispered. He barely even looked at her for months. It gets worse, John continued. He's denying the affair with Natalie, claiming you're paranoid and unstable, and those offshore accounts we found, he's saying they were business investments you knew about. Anger surged through me, hot and fierce. That lying bastard! Language, dear, my mother murmured, glancing at Lily. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. What do we do now? John leaned forward, his eyes serious. We fight. Hard. I've got some connections at Mason's company. If we can prove the affair happened at work, it could change everything. Just then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Penelope. We need to talk. It's about Mason. Meet me at the park in an hour. I showed the message to my parents. Should I go? My mother frowned. I don't trust that woman. She's always been too close to Mason. But she might have information we need, John pointed out. I stood up, decision made. I'm going. Mom, can you watch Lily? An hour later, I sat on a park bench, my nerves on edge. Penelope approached, her designer sunglasses hiding her eyes. "Evelyn," she said, sitting beside me, "I'm so sorry about all this." I cut to the chase. "What do you know, Penelope?" She hesitated, then reached into her purse. "Mason doesn't know I have this," she said, handing me a USB drive. "It's emails between him and Natalie. And financial records. He's been planning this for over a year, Evelyn. The affair, the money, everything." My hands shook as I clutched the drive. "Why are you giving me this?" Penelope's face crumpled. "Because I can't stand by and watch him destroy you and Lily. He tried to get me involved in his schemes. I refused, but I should have told you sooner. I'm so sorry." As she spoke, a figure caught my eye across the park. Mason. He was striding towards us, his face twisted with rage. "Penelope!" he shouted. "What the hell are you doing?" I stood up, adrenaline coursing through me. "Stay back, Mason," I warned. He ignored me, grabbing Penelope's arm. "You promised you wouldn't interfere." "Let her go," I demanded, my voice stronger than I felt. Mason turned on me, his eyes wild. "You've ruined everything," he snarled. "I'll make sure you never see Lily again." Something in me snapped. All the fear, all the pain of the past months crystallized into a single, burning point of rage. "No, Mason," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "You're the one who's ruined everything, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man you really are." I held up the USB drive. "It's over. You've lost." For a moment, Mason looked truly afraid. Then, with a growl of frustration, he lunged for the drive. Time seemed to slow. I saw Penelope's shocked face, heard her cry out a warning. But I was already moving, dodging Mason's grasp and backing away. "Don't do this, Evelyn," Mason pleaded, his voice suddenly desperate. "We can work it out, for Lily's sake." I stood my ground, years of pent-up emotion pouring out. "No, Mason, this ends now, for Lily's sake and for mine." As I turned to walk away, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The battle wasn't over, but for the first time, I knew with certainty that I would win. The courtroom fell silent as the judge cleared his throat. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure everyone could hear it. Beside me, John squeezed my hand reassuringly. Across the aisle, Mason sat with his lawyer, his face a mask of cool indifference. "In the matter of Carter versus Carter," the judge began, "this court has reviewed all evidence presented." I held my breath, my mind racing through the events of the past few weeks. John's connections at Mason's company had paid off, providing irrefutable proof of his affair with Natalie. The financial records Penelope had given me exposed Mason's elaborate scheme to hide assets. It had all led to this moment. "And finds in favor of the plaintiff, Evelyn Carter." A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. I sat stunned as the judge continued. "Mr. Carter's actions constitute a clear breach of fiduciary duty. The court awards Mrs. Carter full custody of their daughter, Lily, with Mr. Carter granted supervised visitation. Furthermore, Mr. Carter is ordered to pay alimony and child support as outlined in the divorce settlement." Tears of relief streamed down my face. It was over. We had won. As we left the courthouse, a commotion erupted behind us. Mason came barreling down the steps, his face contorted with rage. "You've ruined me," he shouted. "I've lost everything because of you." John stepped protectively in front of me, but I gently moved him aside. This was my battle to finish. "No, Mason," I said, my voice steady. "You ruined yourself, your choices, your lies, your betrayal. That's what cost you everything." Mason's anger seemed to deflate, replaced by a desperate pleading. "Evelyn, please, I'm sorry. I'll do anything. Just give me another chance." For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I had once loved, but that man was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. "It's too late for that, Mason," I replied softly. "I hope you find peace, for Lily's sake, if nothing else. But our life together is over." As Mason was led away by his lawyer, I turned to my family, my mother, John, and little Lily in her stroller. Their love and support had been my anchor through this storm. "Let's go home," I said, feeling lighter than I had in years. Months passed, and life settled into a new rhythm. I returned to work, finding joy in my career once again. Lily thrived, growing more curious and vibrant every day, and I discovered strength I never knew I possessed. One sunny afternoon, as I pushed Lily on the swings in the park, a familiar face approached. It was Natalie, her eyes downcast and her steps hesitant. "Evelyn," she said softly, I don't know if you want to hear this, but I'm sorry for everything." I studied her face, searching for any hint of deception. Finding none, I nodded. Thank you, Natalie. I hope you found peace too. As she walked away, Lily squealed with delight, reaching for me. I scooped her up, holding her close. You know, little one, I whispered, sometimes life doesn't go the way we plan, but that doesn't mean it can't be beautiful. Later that evening, as I tucked Lily into bed, my phone buzzed with a text from Penelope. Dinner next week? I miss my niece and my sister-in-law. I smiled, typing back a quick yes. Family, I had learned, came in many forms. As I settled onto the porch swing, watching the sun set over the neighborhood, I felt a profound sense of contentment wash over me. The road had been hard, the battles fierce, but I had emerged stronger, wiser, and more true to myself than ever before. This wasn't the life I had once dreamed of, but it was a good life, a life of my own making. And as I closed my eyes, listening to the gentle evening sounds and feeling the warm breeze on my face, I knew that the best was yet to come. For the first time in years, I was truly completely free, and that freedom, it tasted sweeter than I ever could have imagined. The sterile white of the hospital room was supposed to symbolize a beginning, but for me it felt like the end. He looks just like you, Alex, I said, a forced chuckle hiding my trembling voice. Nathan's and Melissa's eyes snapped to mine, a symphony of denial in their reaction. Ridiculous, Laura. What are you saying? Nathan's laugh was too sharp, too quick. Melissa just shook her head, avoiding my gaze. Our life had been simple before this. Nathan, Ava, and I in our cozy home, living what I thought was a happy existence. When Melissa, Nathan's sister-in-law, struggled to conceive, we all felt her pain. Her eventual pregnancy was a joy we all shared, or so I believed. Walking into the hospital that day, I expected to feel nothing but happiness. But Nathan's attention wasn't on his niece or nephew. It was fixated on Melissa in a way that clawed at my insides. Melissa did great, didn't she? He kept saying, his voice soft, tender even. It was a tone I hadn't heard in years, not since Ava was born. The drive home was silent. Nathan's mind seemed miles away, and I couldn't stop the gnawing feeling in my gut that something was deeply wrong. A few days later, Derek, Melissa's husband, came over. Our daughters played together as we sat, nursing our coffees. Nathan's been a great support to Melissa, he started, his voice trailing off. Yeah, he's been amazing, I replied, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. Derek looked at me, his eyes searching. Laura, do you think it's normal how close Nathan and Melissa have become? I wanted to scream, to tell him it wasn't. But fear, a constant companion these days, kept me silent. The next few weeks were a blur of Nathan's late nights and my growing suspicions. He was always texting, smiling at his phone in a way he hadn't smiled at me in months. It's just work, Laura. You know how it is. He'd dismiss my concerns, but the seed of doubt had already taken root. One evening I found lipstick on his collar, a shade I never wore. It's nothing, a misunderstanding, Nathan said, his voice calm, too calm. But his eyes, they couldn't meet mine. I lay awake that night, listening to his steady breaths, feeling the chasm between us widen. The man I married, the father of my child, was a stranger to me now. The thought of confronting him, of hearing him admit to an affair with Melissa, was too much to bear. So I chose silence, a silent witness to my own heartbreak. The days turned into weeks, each one heavier than the last. Nathan's visits to Melissa became more frequent, his excuses more flimsy. She needs help with the baby, he'd say. But Ava had never needed him like that. Our daughter had grown up barely knowing her father's touch, his affection. It was all reserved for Melissa now. Derek and I started talking more, sharing our fears and doubts. I think they're having an affair, he finally said one day, his voice heavy with resignation. The words hung in the air, a confirmation of my worst fears. What do we do now? I asked, feeling defeated, lost. We need proof, Derek replied, determination in his voice. For our peace of mind, for the sake of our families. So we decided to hire a detective to shine a light on the deceit that had crept into our lives. It was a step into the unknown, a final acknowledgement that the life I thought I had was nothing but a lie. As I lay in bed that night, Nathan's silent form beside me, I couldn't help but wonder how we got here. The love we shared, the dreams we built, how had it all come to this? The answer, I feared, was lying right beside me, hidden behind closed eyes and a facade of innocence. 2 weeks had passed since Derek and I made the decision to uncover the truth. Each day felt like a march through a minefield, each step threatening to blow up the facade of our lives. Derek came over with the detective's first report. "You ready for this?" he asked, his voice steady, but his hands betraying a slight tremor. "As I'll ever be," I replied, feeling anything but ready. We sat at the kitchen table, the sounds of our children playing outside a stark contrast to the tension between us. He opened the envelope, and we pored over the photos and texts. Nathan and Melissa at a cafe, their heads close together, laughing. Another photo showed them shopping, Nathan's hand lightly touching Melissa's back. The texts were even more damning, filled with endearments and plans to meet up when they knew Derek and I would be occupied. "I can't believe this," I whispered, the words like shards of glass in my throat. "How could they do this to us?" Derek's face was a mask of pain and anger. We confront them, together. The confrontation was planned for the next evening at our house. The waiting was excruciating, time stretching out, each second heavy with dread and anger. Finally, they arrived. Nathan and Melissa, looking too comfortable in their deceit. We sat in the living room, the air thick with tension. Derek wasted no time. "We know about the affair," he said, his voice cutting through the silence. Melissa's face went white, while Nathan's expression hardened. "What affair?" Nathan's voice was cold, dismissive. "Don't play dumb, Nathan," I said, finding my voice. "We have proof." I threw the photos and texts on the coffee table in front of them. Melissa picked up one of the photos, her hands shaking. "It's not what it looks like," she started, her voice barely above a whisper. "Really? Because it looks like you're betraying your family." Derek's voice rose, his anger palpable. Nathan stood up, his demeanor changing. "You're overreacting. We're just close, that's all." "Close?" I echoed, disbelief and anger coursing through me. "You call this being just close?" I pointed at a photo of them kissing. "It was a mistake," Melissa finally admitted, tears starting to form in her eyes. "A mistake?" Derek laughed bitterly. "How many times do you mistake your way into my wife's arms, Nathan?" Nathan was silent, his facade crumbling. "We're going to sort this out," I said, my voice steady with resolve. "You two need to decide where your loyalties lie, with each other or with your families." The room was silent, the only sound Melissa's quiet sobbing. Nathan looked at me, then at Derek, a mix of defiance and guilt in his eyes. "This isn't over," Derek said, standing up. "We'll be seeking legal advice." Nathan and Melissa left without another word, the gap between us now a chasm too wide to ever bridge again. After they left, Derek and I sat in silence, the weight of our discovery settling around us like a shroud. "What now?" I finally asked, my voice hollow. "Now, we rebuild. Without them," Derek replied, his voice firm but his eyes showing the pain of betrayal. We agreed to proceed with the divorces, a decision that felt like signing a death warrant to the life we thought we had. But there was no going back. The shadows of doubt had lifted, revealing the ugly truth beneath. As Derek left, he turned to me, a sad smile on his face. "We'll get through this, Laura, for our kids." I nodded, watching him walk away, feeling the solidarity between us. We were united in our betrayal, but also in our determination to rise from the ashes of our broken marriages. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but we were ready to face them. Together, we would seek our revenge, not through petty acts, but by reclaiming our lives and showing Nathan and Melissa that we were stronger than their deceit. The day of the confrontation had arrived. Derek and I had arranged to meet Nathan and Melissa at Derek's house, a neutral ground laden with memories of better days. The air was thick with tension, the kind that makes your skin crawl and your heart beat out of your chest. Nathan and Melissa sat across from us, a gulf of betrayal between. Their faces were masks of apprehension, a stark contrast to Derek's steely resolve and my simmering anger. Derek didn't waste a moment. "We've seen the evidence. Now we want to hear it from you. What's been going on?" His voice was calm, but the underlying fury was palpable. Melissa glanced at Nathan, a silent plea for support. Nathan cleared his throat, his usual confidence nowhere in sight. "We didn't mean for this to happen," he began, his voice a mere shadow of its former self. "It just did." "Just did?" I echoed, incredulity lacing my tone. "You make it sound like an accident." "It was a mistake," Melissa interjected, her voice trembling. "We never meant to hurt anyone." "A mistake?" Derek's laughter was bitter, filled with scorn. "You call destroying our families a mistake?" Nathan looked at me, desperation in his eyes. Laura? Don't. I cut him off, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. Don't you dare try to justify your actions to me. The room fell silent, the tension a tangible entity that wrapped around us, suffocating. Derek leaned forward, his gaze fixed on Nathan and Melissa. We're done here. We've heard enough. But what about us? What about our families? Melissa's plea was met with a cold, hard truth from Derek. There is no us anymore. You two made sure of that. His words were final, a door slamming shut on any hope of reconciliation. As Nathan and Melissa left, the reality of our situation sank in. The betrayal was out in the open, but it did little to ease the pain. If anything, it amplified it, each word from Nathan and Melissa a knife twisting deeper. Derek and I sat in silence, the aftermath of the confrontation settling around us like dust after a storm. What now? I finally asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Now we move forward, Derek replied, his voice firm. We start the divorce proceedings, and we make sure they understand the gravity of what they've done. I nodded, the path ahead clear but daunting. This was just the beginning. Nathan and Melissa had to face the consequences of their actions, not just in our broken hearts, but in their shattered realities. The following weeks were a blur of legal meetings and paperwork, a constant reminder of the betrayal. But amidst the chaos, a resolve solidified within me. Nathan and Melissa would not get away with tearing our families apart without facing the repercussions. Derek and I were in constant communication, our bond strengthened by our shared resolve for justice. They won't know what hit them, Derek said during one of our strategy meetings. His determination was infectious, a beacon of strength in the overwhelming darkness. The day we filed for divorce was somber, yet there was an undercurrent of empowerment. We were taking control, no longer victims of Nathan and Melissa's selfish desires. As I signed the papers, my hands steady, I couldn't help but think about the journey ahead. It would be fraught with challenges, but I was ready to reclaim my life, to show Nathan that he hadn't broken me. I was stronger than his betrayal, and I would emerge from this ordeal not just intact, but reborn. The battle lines were drawn, and this was just the beginning. Nathan and Melissa would soon learn that their actions had consequences, and Derek and I were just getting started. The legal battle was in full swing. Derek and I sat across from our respective lawyers in a conference room that felt too cold, too impersonal for the storm of emotions brewing inside me. We were about to discuss our strategy for the upcoming court sessions, a plan that would ensure Nathan and Melissa felt the full weight of their betrayal. Our primary focus is on the financial repercussions and the custody arrangements, Derek's lawyer began, his voice all business. We have a strong case, given the evidence of infidelity and the impact on your families. I nodded, my mind racing. The thought of Nathan and Melissa squirming in their seats, faced with the cold, hard facts of their actions, gave me a grim sense of satisfaction. Derek leaned in, his voice low but fierce. We're not just going for a simple divorce settlement. We want to make sure they understand the pain they've caused, financially and emotionally. The lawyers outlined the strategy, including demands for alimony, child support, and even punitive damages for emotional distress. With each point they made, I felt a step closer to justice, a step closer to making Nathan and Melissa pay for the havoc they'd wreaked. As we wrapped up the meeting, my lawyer handed me a stack of documents. These are the filings for the court. Once these are processed, it's only a matter of time. I took the documents, the weight of them in my hands symbolizing the gravity of the situation. Thank you, I said, my voice steady. I want them to regret ever crossing us. The day of the first court session arrived. Nathan and Melissa were already seated when Derek and I walked in, their faces a mix of defiance and nervousness. As we took our seats, I caught Nathan's eye, his gaze quickly shifting away, unable to hold mine. The proceedings were a blur, the lawyers presenting the evidence, arguing our cases with clinical precision. Nathan and Melissa's lawyer tried to downplay the affair, painting it as a momentary lapse in judgment, but the evidence spoke louder than his words. During a recess, I stepped outside for air, the weight of the courtroom suffocating. Nathan followed, a desperate look on his face. Laura, can't we talk about this? There has to be another way, he pleaded, his voice barely above a whisper. I turned to him, my resolve as strong as ever. Talk? After everything you've done? You're delusional, Nathan. He reached out as if to touch my arm, but I stepped back. You'll pay for what you've done, both financially and by losing us. You've already lost everything that mattered. Returning to the courtroom, I felt empowered, my path clear. Nathan and Melissa had chosen their fate the moment they betrayed our trust, and now they were facing the consequences. As the judge announced a recess until the next session, Derek and I shared a look of determination. This was far from over, but we were on the right track. Nathan and Melissa's lawyer seemed rattled, a sign that our strategy was working. Outside the courtroom, Derek and I discussed our next steps. They think they can get away with a slap on the wrist. We'll show them how wrong they are, Derek said, anger lacing his voice. I nodded, the fire of revenge burning brighter within me. They'll regret the day they decided to betray us. This is just the beginning. As we left the courthouse, the cold air felt invigorating, a stark contrast to the heated emotions inside. The battle lines were drawn, and I was ready for the fight. Nathan and Melissa would learn the hard way that actions have consequences, and Derek and I were the harbingers of their reckoning. The days leading up to the final court session were filled with a tense anticipation. Derek and I had become fixtures in each other's lives, our shared quest for justice, a bond that was unbreakable. We spent hours poring over documents and strategizing with our lawyers, determined to leave no stone unturned. On the eve of the final session, Derek called me. "Tomorrow's it, Laura. Are you ready?" "As I'll ever be," I replied, my voice tinged with a mix of nerves and determination. "We've got this. They won't know what hit them," he said, his confidence bolstering my spirits. The courtroom was packed the next day, a silent audience to the final act of our drama. Nathan and Melissa sat together, a united front that belied the cracks in their facade. As the session began, our lawyer presented our closing arguments with precision and unwavering conviction. He laid out the financial demands, the request for sole custody, and the punitive damages for the emotional toll their actions had taken on us. Nathan's lawyer attempted a rebuttal, arguing for leniency and a more equitable division of assets. My clients regret their actions, but they shouldn't be financially ruined because of a personal mistake. Derek leaned over to me, whispering, "A personal mistake? They call destroying families a mistake?" I couldn't help but scoff quietly, the absurdity of their defense clear as day. Then it was Melissa's turn to speak. She stood, her voice shaky. "I know we've caused pain, and I'm truly sorry for that. But please, think of the financial consequences. We have a child to think about." Her plea hung in the air, but my heart had hardened against their excuses. They thought of consequences only when faced with them, not when they embarked on their affair. Finally, Nathan stood. "I've made mistakes, but I'm asking for a chance to make things right. Don't let this mistake define our entire lives." The judge listened intently, his expression unreadable. After what felt like an eternity, he announced he would deliver his decision. The wait was agonizing, each tick of the clock a reminder of what was at stake. When the judge returned, the room fell silent. He began to speak, his voice firm. "After careful consideration, the court has decided to grant the plaintiff's requests for alimony, child support, and partial punitive damages. The betrayal and its impact on the families cannot be overlooked." A gasp went through the room, Nathan and Melissa's faces turning pale. The judge continued, outlining the financial ramifications and the custody arrangements that favored Derek and me. As the judge concluded, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Justice had been served, not just in words but in actions that would ensure Nathan and Melissa felt the consequences of their betrayal. Outside the courthouse, Derek and I shared a moment of quiet victory. "We did it," he said, a smile breaking through the exhaustion. "We did," I replied, the reality of our victory sinking in. They finally got what they deserved. As we parted ways, I felt a chapter of my life closing. The pain of betrayal would always be a part of me, but so would the strength I found in standing up for myself. Nathan and Melissa's downfall was a testament to karma's unyielding grip. They had chosen their path, and now they were forced to walk it, burdened by the financial and emotional weight of their choices. The drive home was reflective, a mix of sadness for what was lost and hope for what lay ahead. The battle was over, but the war for my own peace and happiness was just beginning. I was ready to face it head-on, armed with the knowledge that justice, in the end, always finds a way. In the aftermath of the court's decision, the world seemed to shift on its axis. The victory was bittersweet, the taste of justice mingled with the remnants of a life unraveled. Yet, amidst the rubble of broken relationships and shattered trust, a new resolve took root within me. The first signs of Nathan and Melissa's unraveling came swiftly. Nathan, burdened by the financial obligations imposed by the court, reached out in a desperate attempt to renegotiate the terms. "I can't afford this, Laura. It's going to ruin me," he pleaded over the phone, his voice a mix of desperation and disbelief. "The court has made its decision, Nathan. You should have thought about the consequences before," I replied, my voice steady, devoid of the warmth it once held for him. "But what about Ava? What about our family?" His attempt to tug at my heartstrings fell flat, the mention of our daughter igniting a protective fierceness within me. "Our family was broken the moment you chose Melissa over us. You're facing the consequences of your actions now," I said, hanging up before he could respond. The finality in my voice marked the end of our conversation, and in many ways, the end of our connection. Melissa, too, faced her comeuppance. With Nathan's finances in disarray, she found herself grappling with the reality of raising their child without the lavish lifestyle she was accustomed to. Her complaints filled the air, reaching me through the grapevine of mutual acquaintances who still lingered on the fringes of my life. "It's not fair. This isn't the life I signed up for," she lamented to anyone who would listen, her voice tinged with bitterness and regret. The schadenfreude I felt was tempered by a hint of pity, not for Melissa, but for the innocent child caught in the crossfire of adult folly. Derek and I, through our shared ordeal, had grown closer, our conversations a blend of commiseration and burgeoning friendship. One evening, over coffee, he shared a piece of news that felt like the final nail in the coffin of Nathan and Melissa's deceit. "They're struggling to make ends meet. Melissa's been looking for work, and Nathan's second job barely covers the alimony and child support," Derek said, a hint of satisfaction in his voice that mirrored my own. "It's the bed they made. Now they have to lie in it," I responded, the sentiment echoing the harsh reality of their situation. Our dialogue was interrupted by Ava's laughter, a sound that brought home the reason for all our struggles. Derek's daughter, too, found joy in the simple moments we shared, her presence a balm to the wounds of the past. As the days turned into weeks, the tangible outcomes of our legal victory became evident. Nathan and Melissa's facade of unity crumbled under the weight of financial strain and public scrutiny. Their attempts to maintain a semblance of normalcy were met with the cold, hard truth of their actions and the repercussions that followed. In the midst of their downfall, Derek and I found a semblance of peace. Our meetings, once dominated by strategies for legal battles, now gave way to conversations about healing and moving forward. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" Derek mused one afternoon as we watched our children play in the park, their laughter a testament to their resilience. "We have," I agreed, allowing myself a moment to reflect on the journey. "And we'll keep moving forward, for them and for ourselves." The chapter of betrayal and revenge had closed, leaving behind lessons learned and strength gained. Nathan and Melissa's descent was a testament to the power of karma, a reminder that actions always have consequences. For Derek and I, the path ahead was clearer, paved with the promise of new beginnings and the determination to build a future defined not by the past, but by the possibilities that lay ahead.
My life's pretty straightforward. I'm all about fitness, health, and now, apparently, drama. I'm 26, juggling my job as a fitness trainer and my health blog. That's how I bumped into Mark at the sports center, a connection that quickly turned into something special. He's got this vibe that's hard to ignore, and before we knew it, we were deep in what you'd call a whirlwind romance. Now, let me set the scene for you. It was a hot summer day, and I was meeting Mark's family for the first time. I was nervous but excited. Dressed in a simple, knee-length dress with short sleeves, nothing flashy, but apparently, enough to kick off a storm. Mark had prepped me about his family, loving, a bit traditional, and protective of each other. He mentioned his mom, Linda, with a tone that I couldn't quite figure out at the time. "She's got strong opinions, but don't take it to heart," he said. Little did I know, those were words of warning. We walked into their family home, and there they were. Alex, Mark's younger brother, was the first to greet us, a hearty guy with a welcoming smile. Then came Linda. The air felt like it dropped a few degrees. Her eyes scanned me from head to toe, lingering on my arms. Yes, my arms. Bare because it was summer and it was sweltering outside. "Is this how you dress to meet your future mother-in-law? A bit bold, don't you think?" Linda's voice was colder than I expected, laced with a disapproval that felt like a slap. I was taken aback, my mind racing for the right words. Mark squeezed my hand, a silent form of support. I cleared my throat. "Well, it's summer, you know? It's quite hot outside, and I thought this was pretty decent and comfortable." Linda scoffed. "Comfortable or not, it's about first impressions." I would have expected something more appropriate. Mark jumped in, trying to smooth things over. "Mom, come on, it's really hot today. Erica's dressed fine. Let's not start off on the wrong foot." But Linda wasn't having any of it. "I'm just saying, Mark. It's about respect." "But fine, let's have dinner." Dinner was a tense affair. Conversations flowed around me, but Linda's earlier comments hung over the table like a dark cloud. Alex tried to lighten the mood, cracking jokes and sharing stories, which I was thankful for. Mark kept shooting me reassuring looks, but the damage was done. After dinner, while helping with the dishes, Linda cornered me in the kitchen. "Listen, dear, I'm just looking out for my son. He's a good boy, and I don't want him to make a mistake." I was floored. "A mistake? Linda, I love Mark, and I'm not here to play games. I don't know what I did to give you a bad impression, but that's not me." She just shook her head. "We'll see. Time tells all truths." The ride home was quiet. Mark apologized for his mom's behavior, but I could tell he was upset too. She can be protective, but this was too much. "I'm sorry, Erica." I sighed, leaning back in the seat. "It's okay, Mark. But if this is how it's going to be, we've got a rocky road ahead." The wedding planning was in full swing, and Mark and I were all in, picking out decorations, tasting cakes, and of course, finding the perfect attire. I fell in love with this stunning dress, sleek and a tad revealing, but nothing outrageous. Well, at least I thought so until Linda caught a glimpse. "You plan on wearing that in front of the whole family, Erica?" She blurted out the first time she saw it. "Looks like you're aiming for a beach party rather than a wedding." I tried to laugh it off. "It's just modern, Linda. Plus, it's going to be a warm day, and I want to feel comfortable." Mark squeezed my hand, signaling not to start a battle we couldn't win. But Linda's frown said it all. She wasn't pleased, muttering about tradition and decency as she walked off. I thought, if a dress could stir the pot, what lay ahead? After the initial clash with Linda, things settled into a tense kind of normalcy. I threw myself into work and my blog, which was my slice of sanity. My blog and social media were my territory, a place where I felt in control and could share my passion for fitness and health. It never crossed my mind that this very passion would stir the pot once again. One evening, Mark and I were lounging on the couch, a rare moment of downtime. He was scrolling through his phone, a frown slowly forming on his face. "Babe, we need to talk," he said, his tone serious. I sat up. "What's up? Something wrong?" He handed me his phone, showing my Instagram profile. There, in the comments of my latest post, were a bunch of supportive and some flirty comments. Normal stuff, I thought. Okay, and? I was confused. "It's my mom," Mark sighed. "She's been going through your posts, making a big deal out of every single guy comment. She's spinning it like you're, I don't know, inviting attention?" I felt a rush of anger. "You've got to be kidding me. It's Instagram, for crying out loud. People comment. That's how it works." "Yeah, I know, but she's convinced there's more to it. She's telling everyone who'll listen that you're not faithful. It's ridiculous." I grabbed the phone from him, scrolling through the comments. Nothing out of the ordinary. Yet, Linda had managed to twist it into something sordid. "So, what? Am I supposed to police who comments on my posts now?" "No, of course not. But maybe we could limit who can comment or something. Just until this blows over?" Mark's suggestion was well-meaning, but infuriating. I snapped. "So I have to censor my account because your mom has a twisted view of me?" Hell no. That's not happening. Fast forward through the Instagram saga, with Linda twisting my every move into a scandal, things only got stickier. Alex, bless him, started giving me rides home from work since his office was just a block away from the gym. It was innocent convenience, but not to Linda's eyes. At a family dinner one evening, with the tension thick in the air, Linda started her usual insinuations. "Nice of Alex to play chauffeur, isn't it?" she said, her voice dripping with implication. "Seems like he's always there when Mark isn't." Mark's jaw tensed, and I saw Alex stiffen. "Mom, what are you implying?" Mark's voice had that warning edge, but Linda was on a roll. "Oh, nothing. Just making conversation," she replied, feigning innocence while her eyes darted between me and Alex. It was like a match to the fuse. "Stop it, Mom. You're out of line," Alex snapped, clearly at his limit. The argument escalated from there, with Mark caught in the middle, torn between his brother and his mother's accusations. The drive home was silent, the weight of the accusations hanging between us. I couldn't believe Linda would stoop so low, using Alex's kindness as a weapon against me. The whole mess with Linda reached a boiling point I never thought possible. After the latest stunt she pulled, accusing me of messing around because Alex gave me a few rides home, I hit my limit. I told Mark flat out, "Your mom's not welcome in our house anymore. I can't do it. She's crossed too many lines." "You'd think I'd declared war." Linda went ballistic when she heard about the ban. But honestly, I was past caring. Her constant digs and accusations were bad enough, but what came next was the real kicker. A couple of months down the line, I found out I was pregnant. Joy turned to chaos real quick. Linda, upon hearing the news, decided to spin a new tale, telling Mark she could be carrying anyone's child. "How do you know it's yours?" "With all those men at her gym, who knows?" Hearing that venom from his own mom, Mark started to change. He'd listen, really listen, to her poison. I could see it in his eyes, the doubt. It was like a slap in the face. Our once solid bond was now filled with this unspoken tension, eating away at us. One night, After overhearing another one of their phone calls, I confronted Mark. So, what? You think I'm cheating on you? That this baby isn't yours? My voice was sharp, a mix of hurt and anger. Mark looked torn, a shadow of himself. I don't know what to think anymore, Erica. My mom, she's got all these ideas, and what? You're gonna take her word over mine? Over everything we've built? I cut him off, disbelief coloring every word. He didn't answer. Just shuffled his feet and looked anywhere but at me. That silence spoke volumes, more than any argument ever could. Things between us got colder after that. Conversations were clipped, filled with tension. It was like living with a stranger. The joy of our upcoming baby was overshadowed by this cloud of suspicion and doubt. When our baby boy came into the world with his fair hair and bright blue eyes, I thought maybe, just maybe, things would start to look up. But I couldn't have been more wrong. As he grew, his features became even more pronounced, making him the spitting image of a golden-haired angel. Problem was, Mark, my husband, is as brunette and dark-eyed as they come, which, of course, gave Linda, the ever-suspicious mother-in-law, more ammo for her accusations. I even dug up my old childhood photos to show Linda and Mark, hoping it would shut down the whole ridiculous argument. Look, I said, pointing to a picture of me at 5, blonde and blue-eyed, just like our son. It's genetics, Linda. Can't you see the resemblance? Linda just sniffed, unimpressed, her eyes narrowing. Convenient, isn't it? That your genes decided to pop up now. And Alex being blonde doesn't help your case. Mark stood there, caught in the middle, his face a mix of confusion and hurt. The tension was unbearable. Things hit the fan at our son's first birthday party. With all the guests cooing over the baby, Linda couldn't resist making a scene. This child looks nothing like my son. Everyone can see it. We need a DNA test to prove who the father really is, she announced out loud, making everyone uncomfortable. I was livid, my face burning with embarrassment and anger. Are you out of your mind, Linda? Accusing me in front of everyone? No way am I doing some test just because your paranoia's got the better of you. I shot back, my voice dripping with indignation. It was humiliating, being accused like that, especially in front of friends and family. But then, Mark stepped in, and not in the way I hoped. Actually, we're doing it, he said, his voice cold, a hardness in his eyes I hadn't seen before. If you've got nothing to hide, then there's no issue. We do the test, or we're done. I can't be married to someone I don't trust. I was floored. You serious right now? You're choosing your mom's crazy over me, over your son? He didn't budge, didn't even seem to flinch at my words. It's not just my mom. There's too much doubt, too much talk. The test ends at one way or another. And until then? I asked, my heart in my throat, already dreading the answer. Pack your bags. Stay somewhere else. I can't look at you, not now, not with these doubts. His words cut through me, leaving a chill in their wake. So, there I was, packing up a storm, my hands shaking with a cocktail of rage and hurt. Our baby boy, oblivious to it all, watched with wide, innocent eyes as his world, and mine, crumbled. I left, heading to the only place I could think of, my mom's. My mom was waiting, arms wide open, when I got there. I barely got through the door, before I broke down. He's kicked us out, Mom. Over some DNA test Linda's convinced him we need. My mom was all fury, ready to storm over there and give Mark a piece of her mind. Over my dead body, she said, but I stopped her. No, it's not worth it. Not right now. I spent the night going over every moment, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. How did we get here, from being so in love to questioning our baby's paternity? And Alex, caught up in this mess for no good reason other than Linda's spite. After the whole mess at my son's first birthday, word got around fast. It felt like the whole city knew about Linda's accusations before the party favors were even picked up. My friends, my mom's friends, even the neighbors who'd watched me grow up, were all whispering behind my back. It was like living in a bad dream. Fed up and desperate to clear my name, I decided to go ahead with the DNA test. Picking up the phone, I called Mark, my voice steady, but my hands shaking. "I'll do the test," I said, cutting straight to the chase. There was a pause on the other end before Mark replied, his voice too calm for my liking. "I knew you'd come around. It's for the best." Arriving at the clinic, I was a bundle of nerves. Mark was there, looking like he carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. And, to my surprise, so was Alex. "Why is he here?" I asked, nodding toward Alex, unable to keep the edge out of my voice. Mark didn't meet my eyes as he answered. "There's been talk that you and Alex might have, you know. He's getting tested too." I felt my blood boil at the implication. "You think I'd, with your brother? That's how little you trust me?" Before Mark could reply, the specialist called us in, breaking the tension for a moment. Inside, the specialist laid it out straight. Determining paternity can be complicated when potential fathers are siblings. We'll need additional samples from everyone involved, including from you, Erica, to ensure accuracy. So, we all gave our samples, each of us lost in our own thoughts. I could tell Alex was mortified, Mark was conflicted, and me? I was just angry. Angry that it had come to this, angry at Linda, angry at Mark for letting his mother's paranoia get this far. With the tests done, we were told it'd be a couple of weeks before we got the results. Those weeks were the longest of my life. I wasn't just sitting around, though. I made a few calls, talked to a man who promised he could help me out in a delicate matter. I didn't know if it would lead anywhere, but I had to try something. The waiting was torture, not knowing what the future held for me, my son, and even Mark and Alex. But I clung to the hope that once the results were in, I could start to put this whole nightmare behind me. The tension in Linda's living room was almost a physical presence, wrapping its icy fingers around my heart as we waited. The grand reveal was about to happen, with everyone playing their part in this twisted family drama. My son clutched my hand, sensing the storm brewing, but not understanding its cause. Linda, ever the master of ceremonies in her own mind, dramatically sliced open the envelope containing the DNA test results. Her anticipation was palpable, hoping, no doubt, for a scandal to validate her accusations. But the moment she peeked inside, her expression faltered, her disappointment clear as day. "The father is Mark," she announced, her voice losing its usual sharpness. Mark, who had been a bundle of nerves, visibly relaxed, a smug smile spreading across his face. He turned to me, his arrogance returning full force. "Well, there you have it. No harm done, right? You can come back home now." His words ignited something fierce within me, a mix of disbelief and anger. I couldn't hold back a bitter laugh. "Come back? After all this? You must be joking." He blinked, taken aback by my reaction. "But, you're innocent, Erica. Isn't that what you wanted?" That's when I played my hand, pulling out the divorce papers I'd kept hidden away. The silence that followed was deafening as I laid them on the table. Mark's face went from confident to pale, a look of sheer panic taking over. "What's this? Why?" "Divorce papers," I replied, the words tasting like freedom. "And here's why. I then produced the photos, the undeniable proof of Mark's infidelity, captured in vivid detail by the private detective I'd secretly hired. Mark's transformation was pitiful. From confident to broken, he started to babble apologies, his earlier facade crumbling. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Please, let's talk about this. Talk? I scoffed, my voice cold. You dragged my name through the mud, let your mother accuse me of the worst, and all the while, you were the one cheating. There's nothing to talk about. Linda attempted to intervene, her earlier eagerness for drama now replaced by a desperate need to salvage the situation. Now, dear, let's all calm down. We can fix this. Fix this? I cut her off sharply. Your son's a cheat. And you're no better for stirring all this trouble based on lies. After I laid out the proof of Mark's betrayal for all to see, the room turned into a battleground of broken bonds and shattered illusions. Linda, with a look of sheer disgust, couldn't tear her eyes away from the photos spread out like a hand of betrayal on the coffee table. I'm not just walking away, Mark. I'll be demanding alimony and compensation for this treachery, I declared, my voice steady but seething with anger. Mark's face drained of color, his earlier bravado evaporating into thin air. You can't be serious, he stammered, looking from the photos to his mother, seeking some sort of refuge or rescue. Linda, ever the matriarch, tried to salvage what little control she thought she had. Oh, please. She was never right for you. She would have cheated on you sooner or later. You're better off without her. That's when Alex, who'd been quietly simmering with rage, stepped in. Enough! He exploded, his voice echoing off the walls. I'm done with all of this. With both of you. He looked pointedly at his mother and brother. After everything you put her through, based on nothing but your own twisted suspicions, I'm out. Linda turned to him, her face a mask of shock and desperation. Alex, please, don't say that. I was just trying to protect our family. Protect? Alex scoffed, his scorn palpable. Is that what you call this? Destroying relationships, spreading lies? I can't be part of this family if this is what it stands for. I'm moving to another city. Starting fresh, away from all this madness. Hearing of Alex's decision later, I relayed the events to my mom. She had always been my rock, and even now, her words provided a cold comfort. That's the price of Linda's folly. Her arrogance and stupidity cost her her own sons. Maybe now she'll see the harm she's caused. The fallout was immediate and absolute. Alex followed through on his promise, moving away and cutting ties. Mark was left to deal with the consequences of his actions, his mother's manipulations laying the foundation for a chasm too wide to bridge between them. Life after the dust settled was different. Not easier, but clearer, like I was seeing everything for the first time again. My mom and I had many long talks about it all, sitting on her old, comfy sofa with cups of tea that always seemed to go cold before we finished them. Mom, I started one evening, the sky outside painting a picture of calm I didn't quite feel inside. Do you think I made the right choice? With everything, the divorce, standing up to Linda and Mark like that? My mom set her cup down, turning to look at me with those wise eyes that had seen more of life than I ever wished to. Darling, you did what you had to do. You stood up for yourself, for your dignity. That's more important than staying in a marriage that was built on distrust. The biggest change, besides the obvious, was in Alex. He'd moved to another city, cutting ties with his family. He called me once, just before he left. I can't stay here, not after everything. I need to start fresh, somewhere where every corner doesn't remind me of all this. I understood. You'll always have a friend in me, Alex. You were the only one who really saw me through all this mess. He chuckled, a sound that held a shadow of our shared troubles. And you, me. Take care of yourself, alright? After hanging up, I couldn't help but feel a pang of loss. Not just for the relationship I thought I had with Mark, but for the family I thought I was part of. Months passed, and life found a new rhythm. My blog started picking up more traction, becoming a space where I could share not just tips on fitness and health, but also personal stories of resilience and starting over. It resonated with people, more than I expected. As I was settling into this new chapter of my life, finding solace in the routine I'd built for me and my boy, my phone rang out of the blue one afternoon. The screen flashed a name I hadn't seen in a while, Linda. My initial instinct was to ignore it, let it go to voicemail, but something, maybe curiosity, or maybe just a desire to finally put it all to bed, made me answer. Hello? Her voice came through, shaky and laced with something that sounded like regret. Erica, I was wondering, could I see him? My grandson? The audacity of her request after everything that had happened stopped me cold. For a moment, I was back in that living room, feeling the weight of her accusations all over again. You've got some nerve, Linda, I said, my voice steady but firm. After all the hell you put us through, now you want to play grandma? You didn't even want to see him in him before. She started to cry, mumbling apologies between sobs, trying to explain herself, but I wasn't having any of it. Save your tears, Linda. It's too late for sorries now. But please, I just want to make things right, she pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. I sighed, a deep, weary sigh. You should have thought of that before. You made your bed. Now, you get to lie in it. Alone. Without waiting for her response, I hung up, the finality of the click echoing through me. It was harsh, maybe, but necessary. A line had been drawn, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was the one in control of where it went. Looking at my son, now a little older and wiser beyond his years, I knew we were going to be okay. We had each other, and a future that was ours to shape.